And we're on.
Right, we're going to reconvene our meeting and shift gears to finishing our walkthrough of H 687 draft 5.1 with our legislative council. Hello. Ellen Tchaikovsky, Office of Legislative Counsel. I don't know what page we're on.
45.
45.
So,
Yes, the road rule.
17.
Well, we've come up with a plan, the road rule in the next, I think we finished this and we had a plan. Plan is to, I've asked Ellen to look at, we're striking section little Roman I 12. 7, large Roman numeral, what's it called? Romanesco? Romanesco. 12. And looking at cleaning up 13 based on yesterday's conversation and trusting our ledge council to look at what was submitted by VNRC as well as the existing road rule and integrate that into the next draft. And rules? And rules. So the concept here is that through the future land use mapping process, the 1B areas will be identified. Road rule will go into effect, I guess, when we pass the bill. Then we'll have once the ERB is created, we'll have them promulgate rules looking at how to address fragmentation in tier 2. Representative Logan.
Will there be rules promulgated for the road rule? That's part of the process, right?
I mean, there could be guidance, but I think we're saying like, this is where like, this is the road rule, it's gonna go into effect. And if they make, we have a better idea.
Okay. Wait, who's that?
The ERB, so it would be after they were up and going. So this road rule will be in effect with, upon passage and then when, until such time as the ERB comes back and says, we have a better idea.
So may I just
Yes.
restate what I think is happening? I think in draft 6.1,
6 more.
we're going to be looking at the potential to pass the existing or the old road rule, Romanet 12, 13. And rule.
Yes. True rulemaking. Or, I mean, I think there's agreement, large scale agreement that this is like based on the previous road rule, something that is worthy of going into effect now. And we had conversations about it. And is it adequate? Does it work? Is then said like, okay, let's let it be in effect for a little while and then have the new ERB say, look at fragmentation in tier 2. Is this the right tool for the job? Or is there a better way to do it?
Yeah. So I think I understand that that's coming back. That sounds like a great thing for us to come back. Just the agreement on doing this is
From the Natural Resource Board process, this is what one of the things they brought us was an agreement to have a road rule.
okay.
Hey.
So
So, process question. So, was that a proposal or is Ellen redrafting? And just to clarify, so it's the section 13 that was being discussed.
yes,
So is that we're going to see that in the next draft or is that? So, sorry, one of the things that, I heard a little bit of was that from yesterday's testimony was that, this language was more from the 2020 or 2021. It was from like when the House voted this through last time. And that the agreement from the summer was not necessarily exactly this because it was this summer. So just wondering if we're gonna hear, like, if there are any specific concerns, like the 1 acre that we talked about yesterday?
We talked about it yesterday, and I think I'm proposing that it comes out. So in the next iteration of the road rule, we're gonna see something closer to what was agreed to. The 1 acre piece of it doesn't seem to be linked to, like, I don't understand it. So,
Right.
doesn't make any sense. So I'm not sure what came.
Are there other things coming out of the road rule? I'm not sure what my directive is.
Okay, you said that you got this road rule mostly from the previous rule that was removed in 2002 or something, right? And so we have a different proposal that came to us from BNRC, which was more what the agreement was. So to use that, it came to us in testimony, talked about it a couple times, should be available. And I think you have it. And if not, we can get it for you. Yeah. Clarifying.
We're still the same road.
There is no road rule now.
There is no. But now it's time to go 3,500 road.
Okay, let's keep going.
So yesterday you did also talk about the language on page 47. Which is the subdivision.
Yeah. And I guess the conversation, I think we should go back to the language as it exists now. Statute. I think that comes out. Yeah. Present Cecilia.
To keep it as friends, yeah.
Yeah.
Things like the plan for this afternoon and
Keep it as it is.
so that will get us to another draft to look at. But I just want to make sure that we're not actually giving up our opportunity to return to these subjects.
No,
We're just moving through what we're going to see in the
trying
next
to
draft.
process the
5 years,
conversations
5
we had
months. Yeah.
yesterday on them and then look at an extra.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Madam Chair.
I keep going back and forth on this one myself. So when critical resource areas are mapped, we would assume that essential habitat connection would be part of those critical resource areas, right?
We're just about to get to that section of the bill.
Okay,
Is that the
that's really kind
something
of my
new or-
concern. Yeah, is that, that ends up in the maps and therefore you wouldn't be able to build a house there without.
Okay, let's keep
Anyhow.
going.
Yeah.
So, next is on page 48. In the definition of critical resource area, the phrase connecting habitat has been changed to habitat connector.
And so in this section, I will actually say that we have had testimony, written testimony. And I'll just say broadly, where I think we should head with it is to put definition to it to the extent that we can, but not as broad as it is today. And I would propose river corridors, headwater streams, and habitat connectors of statewide significance as a starting place for defining what a critical resource area is. And then have the NRB and the agency promulgate rules to define how to integrate those into Act 250 with consideration if we also have a river corridor permitting process that comes across from the Senate. How do we integrate those resources as critical resource areas into Act 250? And what other resources do they recommend as critical resources, which means resources of statewide significance?
Sounds like a great next draft to look at. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Yes, thank you.
To clarify, right now, critical resource area in draft 5.1 has river corridor, significant wetland, the slopes, prime ag, and then habitat connector. What you just said was river corridor, headwater streams, and habitat connector of statewide significance. Does that mean not having the slopes and all of that?
Well, it means that that needs to be considered. I think I would say we're going to put it into the future land use map. So I think the mapping of the slopes should come at that planning level. And then how they are integrated into Act 250. I'm saying,
Steps.
yep, river corridors, headwater streams, habitat connectors of significance. Those are the boundaries. That's the minimum basic critical resource area. NRB, ANR, promulgate rules, tell us what else should be a critical resource and how to integrate those minimums into it. Got it?
Yeah.
Great.
And so this goes into effect when, like July 1, basically.
Well, the definition may go into effect, but the tier 3 won't be identified until the process happens. And yeah.
Should maybe try to say the same thing, but maybe in a way that is also maybe helpful. In a way, there'll be kind of two levels, because the future land use maps will really be where our important natural resources are identified. And so that's in some ways, a very important piece of this, because that'll happen in that process, bottom up, town regions identifying the important natural resources, and then the critical natural resources, so the ones that statewide significance will kind of be an overlay that comes in later through this rulemaking process. But at least that's what I'm conceptualizing.
Madam Chair, I just want to check in with you one more time to make sure I'm clear on what we're doing. So there are a number of things I would like to continue to talk about, but I think what I understand we're doing here is helping us understand where we are in terms of what the next draft is going to be, that we're going to be looking at, and that we will be coming back to these discussions with that draft and next week. And so I just want to be clear, because I'm not sure if this is the time for me to dig in on some of the things, the timelines, all of those things, or are those things that you are thinking we're coming back to after the break in looking at 6.1.
I think for clarity, we talked a lot about, so yes, basically, we're going to get a 6.1 that integrates the conversations we've been having walking through this 5.1 and the timeline, so that we can have a clean place to start the conversation. And then, yes, we'll go back through those changes and talk about them.
Thank you. I think I'm clear. So then in this moment, I probably am not going to be flagging a lot of other things based on that understanding. And I'll be sending you my overarching issues that I have over that break. And
okay, but I mean, what I want to do is get through the yellow language here. And so if you have issues with it,
okay,
we should
still flag it.
still flag it.
Okay, all right. I'll
Send it
try to be
loaded.
brief.
While we're having the process conversation, and then we can move on. There were things that I flagged earlier in this draft. And I'm unsure of whether I should try to ask us to return to those. Now that we've heard testimony on environmental justice, I just kept talking about the fact that we were going to be getting that testimony, but we actually didn't hear, we received written testimony on the EJ components in the Natural Resources Board for the environmental ERB. And some other pieces that I flagged earlier on. And should we try to discuss those for the next draft?
Yeah, what I'd like to do is get through this and
Mhm.
then see where we're at.
Yep.
And then, yes, my guess is
Yeah.
it'll be the next draft.
Okay.
Thank you. Dennis Smith.
No, I have sent a copy of this draft to my DRB and my select board chair. Should I inform them that this is not going to be the way it's going to be and tell them to ignore it and wait for 6.1?
Well, it was my hope that we would get going and get a 6.1 that would be available during town meeting week. So that would be cleaner for people to read.
So do you expect we're going to get through 124 pages today?
I think we're not getting through, we're not going to read every section again. We're going to look at the changes that were made for 5.1. I think if we could start, we might get through it.
Then I'll shut up. Thank you, Chair. For now.
Right. So, next. On page 48, section 25 is section 6033, which is the regional plan future land use map review section featuring tiers 1B and 3. So this draft reflects the change from the word designation to status. And a few other changes in here. And so on page 48, the board shall review requests from regional planning commissions to approve or disapprove portions of future land use maps for the purposes of changing jurisdictional thresholds under this chapter and to approve designations pursuant to 24 VSA chapter 139. The board may produce guidelines for the RPCs seeking these statuses. And if requested by the RPC, the board shall complete this review concurrent with the regional plan review. So. All right,
We should focus on the changes.
Can I just note something in this section? I don't want to take your time, but I talked to Ellen about it, but
The
there's some
record,
process. Was that?
your name?
Oh, sorry, John Groveman, the Vermont Natural Resources Council. Just going through, like, this is about 1B process, and then there's another section later, about 1A process, and there's some gaps in how the process works and inconsistencies between sort of notice and interested person for 1B and 1A, and sort of what the process will be if towns don't fold 1B into regional plan approval. And I could provide some language. I don't want to take, but I just wanted to note for the committee as you try to work through a next draft that I think that there just needs to be some cleanup of these sections just to make it work better.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
That's good to know and appreciated.
on page 49, C, to obtain a tier 1B area status, a municipality shall request the status. And the RPC shall demonstrate that they meet the following. So, you talked about last time that the municipality has to request, so that they need to work that in here somewhere.
Charlie Baker.
Charlie Baker on behalf of the RPCs. Can I just suggest that it's a little confusing if it's the RPC or the town requesting, and could the RPC make the request with documentation that the municipality wants it? like, kind of a letter support or action of the select board or something, so that
Yes.
we're not having dueling
Yes.
questions.
Letter from the select board
Right,
or
okay.
just local, yeah.
And that would go to you, and then you would put it in with the,
And then we can bundle multiple times, we can do it together,
Yeah, makes sense.
so we can get that.
In subsection C, this language hasn't changed, except that I have inverted the paragraph so that it reads better, because last time you said it was confusing. Onto page 50. So these are still the requirements for tier 1B. Municipality has water or wastewater infrastructure in the area proposed for tier 1B. So this language has changed because last time you requested a change from and to or. And then I think I also had, so because you did that, I think I also removed the cross-reference to the defined term, which is water and sewer infrastructure. So the whole sentence has changed.
And catch that. D.
Well, also on page 50, I also added to the list of requirements adequate municipal staff for tier 1B. Subsection D on this page is bold because I think this is in flux, and I suspect you're going to strike this paragraph. Though I don't know. So subsection D is about mapping critical resource areas on the regional plan map.
Suggestion, could this be phrased in such a way that it includes maps after the rulemaking process?
Yeah.
So that, we may be working with the statute for 12 years, right? But yeah, I know they may not be there right away, but
So I don't understand your suggestion.
that after the rulemaking process, the board would then review these things. But they can't review it until the rulemaking happens.
Yes, though. It, process wise, I'm wondering if I will be eliminating all references to tier 3 since it won't be defined anywhere. Though I'm trying to figure out how you.
I think it would be, we would still have tier 3, it'll be delayed. So it would be,
Okay. So, do you know when you want the date for that rulemaking to be?
yeah, as soon as possible. I don't know.
Well, okay, I thought you just said you wanted the ERB to do it, not the NRB.
ERB was doing the fragmentation tier 2. The NRB and ANR are doing tier 3. And then they would all go into effect, I think, 1A and tier 3 at the same time.
Okay.
Rulemaking,
Did not hear what you said.
the rulemaking would start as soon as possible. So we need to look at the timeline and fit it in
Okay.
Rulemaking,
for defining critical resource areas.
That was supposed to be by December 2025, right? For the other?
so it, just flagging that I think that's part of the prominent part of the public engagement. Yeah, and education process
Mhm.
timeline.
It's not the RPC process. This is the NRB process.
Rulemaking is
Making,
the NRB
Right,
and
And
A and R.
Right.
That's their process, but
right. Simultaneously. the land use-
education and information engagement piece would be happening in advance of that. Talking about that is what we're doing
Mhm.
and why.
Was it December 2026? It's December 2026.
So the next changes, tier 1A, all the references have been updated to status from the word designation. The cross references have been updated as well.
As I'm sure you are, I'm really tired and having a hard time focusing. So when you're going.
I'm not having a hard time focusing, but I'm sorry.
Sorry, I shouldn't have projected that onto you. I am having a hard time focusing. So I would really appreciate it if you could just keep coming back to us with the page number and the section, because I'm trying to follow on 2 copies, if that's possible. Thank you.
So we're still on page 50, section 26, section 6034, which is tier 1A status. In this section, the reference to designation has been changed to status, and the cross references have been updated to 139. That is true on page 51 and page 52.
So just jumping in between 4.1 and 5.1. So this was in section 25 and was cited as, right?
just looking at your page 50,
Sorry.
page
This is
50.
4.1.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I changed the numbers.
For the sections. Okay. And then the section of law you changed as well. Okay, thank you. Sure, I'm with you.
Page 52, line 21, last line. Says planned growth area. Is that planned growth area or is that tier 1A?
Tier 1A. There are other references in the bill to planned growth areas still. So at some point, I hope to have more time on my hands. Line up all of the words you have changed.
So and I'm hearing that I just want to confirm that we are. Planned growth area is tier 1A. That is what we are calling it, and you're not calling it. I think I was.
Well, the planned growth area would be part of the future land use map, and then the town, if they so chose to go for the status change. So through
So it's-
mapping, it's identified, and
As a
then,
planned growth area.
yep,
And then jurisdictionally,
they go to the ERB and they say, we want to be a tier 1A, and they tell them they've met these
okay.
criteria.
And designation wise? Center or? Center.
My center chart,
Center or neighborhood.
maybe a center problem. But they could be center neighborhood.
Or they could
Big
be nothing.
accomplishment, just make it right across all 3 columns there. Okay.
On page 53. You added reference to letting the meeting, the pre-application meeting can be either held in the municipality or electronic. On page 54. You have added language, you've adjusted the language under the first notice provision that the Regional Planning Commission shall post the notice on its website. In the prior draft, you were gonna get rid of this entire provision, but you've added it back in and having them just post it on their website. In addition, the municipality has to publish notice of the meeting at least 30 days and 15 days in advance of the board's meeting on the plan.
Just a minor question on that. So we're 30 days before the meeting, we post on the website. It's already gonna be there. We get to post it again 15 days.
Regional Planning Commission shall post it, and then 35 days, and then 35 days
In
municipality.
a newspaper, general, okay.
One's the Regional Planning Commission, one's the municipality.
It is confusingly worded.
Posting.
Yeah, there's two postings.
Representative Logan.
Thank you. So I know that we have a study at the end of the bill right now for the RPCs to consider community engagement process, including language access. I just wanted to flag here for this section. Municipalities may vary in the language access requirements that they uphold for making notice. So I'll come back to it the next time we have a conversation about it, to see if there's anything that we feel like we need to instruct municipalities to do in considering language.
Do you know what their obligation is now?
It's implicit as civil rights issue, but then it would, because it's not explicit, then it would be on the community members themselves to hold the municipality accountable for complying with that civil right. That accurate? You know?
I don't know what the individual town's notice provisions require, so I don't want to opine about that, but
Well, they might require,
they might require more or less. It might be post in the town hall, it might be put on the website.
just flagging it.
Just on the subject of posting notices, I'm kind of surprised that, not many people read notices in newspapers anymore, but everybody, at least the towns I'm familiar with, reads Front Porch Forum, and there are other community online media, and I don't know exactly, I don't want to mention Front Porch Forum by name, but if we could come up with a couple of words that suggested that, because every community, I think in Vermont, every town has access, and that's what people are looking at. You put a notice on Front Porch Forum, most people in town will see it.
Right. You have language for that elsewhere in statute, or Ellen has, I think Ellen has something to say. You looked like you did.
That is a big issue to address in this bill, because I think nearly all other statutes still reference the requirement for notice to appear in the newspaper in general circulation. Other committees have started looking at whether or not that should change, and there are some legal issues with requiring it, I think, with the just internet. So I would advise that we tread lightly on that.
I'm not suggesting that we eliminate the newspaper of record. I'm saying that if we're really serious about people seeing the notice, we can add an additional type of source. That's all I'm saying. I don't want to raise legal issues if it's required that it be in a newspaper of record. That's a whole other issue. So it'll be in the newspaper of record, whether people see it there or not.
I just want to point out to the committee that on line 14, Roman I-3, the town has further obligations, and one of them is 2 other designated public places in the municipality on the website of the town and the Regional Planning Commission. We could simply say, and via any listserv the town maintains or online distribution So I don't know if there's other. And I think it has come up a lot in other, in our bills too, so how to modernize it and also keep it simple. Representative Sackowitz.
Yeah, given Representative Pat's comments about the newspapers not being very useful sources for this kind of information, really wondering whether it makes sense to ask municipalities to post them 30 days and 15 days in advance. I understand the reasoning behind it and I really appreciate it, but given the fact that not very many people look at the newspapers as such notices, and given the extra burden it would place upon municipalities who I don't think are used to posting these things twice in papers. I think they're used to just doing it once, and then they're like, well, we've done that part of our job here. I'm not sure what the benefit is, and I can see this tripping up some municipalities who aren't used to doing it this way because they don't do it in other situations.
Well, I guess I'm not sure if people don't look to the paper. I think there's a pretty large segment in our area that would still look to our newspaper. And I wouldn't want to assume they don't, but Representative Smith.
Thank you. I don't think people read the newspaper like they used to, but they still, Newport paper is pretty small. They still sell 3,000 copies, 2,500 copies, something like that. But the reason, put a 30-day notice out, we talked about it a while ago, 30-day notice, people forget it. 1 week after the meeting, they say, oh, heavens, where, I missed that meeting.
We actually just added the 15 days. It was 30 days.
Yeah, and I think, I know, I was just gonna say, I think that 15 days is good. I thought I heard you saying you didn't like the idea.
No, I understand why. I just think if you see the notice, you should put it in, and you should put it in your calendar, and then doesn't seem like that's a big burden. And then, but I really, putting on my select board member hat, I'm thinking about the municipalities that will have to do this, and unless they're in the habit of doing things, they tend to drop things like this. And so I could see a municipality in all good faith trying to go through this properly, and they do the 30-day notice, and then the 15-day notice they just doesn't happen because in their minds, they're like, well, we already posted that in the newspaper, and they only do it once for all the other things they do. But for this one thing, they have to do it differently.
Megan Sullivan, did you want to weigh in on this?
Megan Sullivan, Vermont Chamber. That's not the newspaper, but just Front Porch Forum. I think if you were to say designated public places or under our websites, social media, that encompasses Front Porch Forum, I think, because I don't know if they consider themselves social media, but I think in other bills that I've heard about,
Yeah,
part of social media, so.
So when it's social media that's in use in your community, I don't know.
Well, municipalities have.
Can I just follow up to Representative Sackowitz? At the top of page 55, it does say that no defect in the notice requirements shall invalidate the action if they made reasonable efforts. And so if they forget, it won't invalidate the action.
Move on.
On page 56.
For the next, I think this was, C. The Regional Planning Commission, this is under, let's make sure. PL,
What page we on?
page 56. And this was under the definition of interested persons definition. And so I don't think we had an RPC in the room when I brought this up last time. And so Regional Planning Commission for the region that includes the designated area, or a regional planning commission whose region adjoins the municipality in which the designation area is located. I'm just wondering if that's common now to have two RPC, not, I shouldn't say common. Have you seen that happen?
Can you say the line you're on page?
Sorry.
You're on
56,
version 4.1 or 5?
5.1.
Okay.
56, 16 through 18.
Oh, yeah.
Charlie Baker on behalf of the RPCs, that you want me to respond to that?
Yes.
If you're asking if this happens currently now in any other process, I'm not aware of this happening very often, but I think there may be some similar language in Act 250. With adjacent region, having some appeal rights, but, I need to double check that.
So this is an area I would like to come back to because we are changing jurisdiction. Was changing jurisdiction. Well, yeah, I just would like to hear a more formal response about if we expect any significant changes to current
I
practice.
can't, does one of you have your hand up? Because I can't see you. Okay, go ahead.
Natural Resources Board, yeah, our party status rules right now do include adjacent RPCs and towns when a project is on a borderline. So this seems consistent with that.
Okay. Does it ever happen?
Yes. An example would be the Exit 16 project is on the edge of Colchester and when you,
Okay, and so you had both, right?
yes. Or the Burton project is on the edge of Burlington and South Burlington, and both of those municipalities participated.
Do you think there would be any difference in the ability of those? So those are our largest towns and cities and probably our largest RPCs and most sophisticated to process people. Southern Vermont, if we had a joining property to the two RPCs, I mean, do you think that there's any difference between rural and kind of larger considerations around that? It's just people, because it's much for kind of wider spread out, more isolation, less community cohesion. So
My understanding, and Pete can kick me if I'm wrong, is that so this would definitely.
Right.
about Pete.
But so it's for projects that are specifically on that border. And I think the reason for that is that often those projects have impacts that extend into the other community. That it would be depriving them of an opportunity to have a say of something that would directly impact. For example, if all the traffic is coming from one place, but it just happens to be over the edge into another. So I think that would still impact in more rural communities, not just in more dense areas.
Okay, I think I am fine now with this thinking.
Okay.
On page 57. Section 27, the tier 1A area guidelines, it updates the reference to tier 1A status over designation.
So that page, bottom of the page, you updated for the ESA, but it does seem like the language needs to be adjusted to reflect the status language. It says here, identify those areas, if any, proposed for designation under chapter 139 of this title and et cetera. So on line 20, it could just say and for status under. I just be really detail oriented.
But, yeah, Charlie Baker, on behalf of the RPC, I think there are two things actually in that paragraph. There's the designations under chapter 139 and the status under
Yeah.
60, 33 and 4.
So I'm suggesting on line 20, yeah, I'm suggesting on line 20, it says and status under 10 BSA, 6033 and 6030.
Or insert status on it.
Anything else on this page? Okay, 58. Yeah, in section 29, section 6081, referenced tier 1A area as a student growth area that's been made. On page 59, section 30, 24 VSA 4460, again, reference to tier 1A or tier 1B area under 6033 or 6034 and 6034 been added.
Just pause for one. Municipal panels, that's where we are.
Mhm.
This is where we have, moving the Act 250 permit conditions over to municipality when designated.
The moving of the conditions happens when a project is seeking review under the municipal permitting process. So it's not an automatic thing that happens.
Okay, so here we are today. We've got in town that's gonna end up being tier 1A. Project with an Act 250 permit. And if they need to change their permit right now, they would go through the Natural Resources Board, that whole process. Pass this law, it's 2029. And there is a proposed. Warren, you were pretty slow on that. Madam Chair.
2057. I wasn't slow, I was trying.
Waiting for the
And
punchline.
yeah, that was not the punchline. So now we have a proposed change and the municipality is in charge of all permitting. So now that project is coming to the town. So how will the town be prepared and know about what to do with that project in
They-
2029 when they're now in charge of the permit?
Well, I think they will look at the rest of the text of this statute,
Which tells us how they will know.
look at the permit conditions in the existing Act 250 permit.
Okay. So.
No, go ahead.
Well, so. Do we with permit I'm just wondering if there's anything that happens with permit conditions that would be like, that's typically. More than very rarely that might leave a community unprepared conditions. Not being someone who files Act 250 permits, so the community.
So when a municipality issues a municipal land use permit, they do typically attach conditions on that permit. So they hopefully are in the habit of attaching permit conditions based on whatever that project is already. And so now as they do that for an updated project, they'll need to look at what was in the existing Act 250 permit, what those conditions were, and transfer over relevant ones to the municipal permit.
So enforcement of Act 250 permits right now comes through the NRB, but also,
And it can also come from A&R if A&R is
I
doing.
was wondering, right? And so
Yep.
where's the help in this? So can A&R still be engaged in this or no?
Why no? We eliminated their ability to enforce them
Okay,
so long as, oh, it's on this page.
okay.
So what we have done is sort of frozen NRB and A&R's enforcement authority on those permits
Right,
unless the municipality does not take any action to enforce those permit conditions.
Okay, I have a question and myself. So A&R permit would still be enforceable as an A&R.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just that there's independent enforcement authority for A&R on Act 250 permits because there's some overlap. And so it's a sort of like a helping out if they're already investigating something.
And so, if I might, I would also say part of why I've been interested in having adequate staff for both tier 1A and tier 1B is this exact thing, is they have to be able to administer a permit and oversee it and, manage it. You need at least a zoning administrator who's used to doing that in order to take on that responsibility.
But it also sounds like as drafted right now, the community could not enforce the permit and then it defaults to.
Well, that's a backstop. The
Yes.
community has said they will do it. And then
Yes.
if someone says, wait, you're not doing it, there needs to be recourse. Peter Gill.
Peter Gill, Executive Director for the Natural Resources Board. I would just say on that point, it's not very clear, and perhaps we would have to put some guidance around this or something to flesh that out exactly how that enforcement would be evoked.
Be what?
When the NRB will take action. You were saying when somebody requests it, I don't know if, how that would actually play out, so that it's clear when our authority exists. Yeah.
Where do we say, where's that line, Ellen, that you just read?
At the bottom of page 58 into 59.
Okay.
I mean, that feels like something that the ERB could flesh out in rules, doesn't it? No? Okay.
I'll just mention, I mean, currently we have joint enforcement with the Agency of Natural Resources and we do that through an MOU. I'm not sure if it would be practicable to have MOUs with each of these municipalities, but that could be an option.
Oh. However, the board review. Guess I'm wondering about, why would that be, and why would this be a different process from what kind of happens now for enforcement? Like if a lot of time, I mean, enforcement is sort of complaint driven, right? So it would be the same. I think like a neighbor would go to the town and say, we have an issue. And then if they felt like there was no action, they'd go to the NRB/ERB. Yeah.
Did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, so the conditional use permits or other permits at the towns are separate from the Act 250 permits, but Act 250 permits often incorporate the A&R permits. So there's not really a chance for crossover between the town zoning and permitting and the Act 250 in the same way that there is with A&R. And there might be times where A&R might want to take the lead on an investigation because it's part of their permit, and then it implicates compliance with Act 250 permits because they have to be in compliance with the A&R permit. But that's not really a system that's set up right now between town zoning and municipalities and NRB's Act 250 jurisdiction.
Right. So these are towns that have demonstrated a commitment to being able to take on those responsibilities through this process.
I guess I'm just wondering where that flag is, if it's just a complaint that is brought to the town and not addressed by the town, and then it gets transferred to the NRB and we then take action and we have authority to take action directly from that. What level of discretion, I guess, do you want to provide to us in terms of determining whether to go forward with a complaint when it's not addressed by the town? Make sure that we have proper, I guess, notice that it's gone through the, town process or not. Take some reasonableness with that approach, I assume, but it would just be helpful to understand a little bit more what your thinking is on it.
Okay. Do you think that you could help us out with some ideas? Great. Representative Sakowitz.
Yeah, on the bottom of page 61, line 16 earlier in the week. Requested, the word majority alone might not be strong enough, and I was asked if I had a suggestion, I didn't at the time, but I do now, and I was thinking that we could change this to accommodate a substantial majority. So stronger than a majority, but not too strong.
All right, sorry, line 16.
Line
51 or 60?
61.
These areas should be planned so as to accommodate
A substantial majority.
Charlie Baker.
Yeah, sir, Charlie Baker on behalf of the RBCs. Sorry to go back a little bit, but I just want to express a note that we need to think a little bit more about this. I was not under the impression that tier 1B municipalities were going to
Yeah.
seek to enforce all the Act 250 permits.
Thank you.
So, and also the exemption they're getting is only for new housing projects, not everything in there. So I'm just wondering if tier 1B municipalities should even be included in that section 30. Question.
It's heavy.
And wait a minute, going back to page 58. Are they? Oh, they're not at appropriate panel means. I see. Okay.
Line 8.
Yes.
Questioning why 1B was in here.
Okay. Did you, someone else? Can we move on? Great.
I don't know, so are we taking that out?
You can out tier 1B in this section.
On both pages?
You know, page 59, line 8.
And 61.
Yeah.
How was that different? Are we on 61 yet?
You are.
It's Representative Sakowitz's.
These are. Representative David.
Thanks. Is there a reason we're not just saying these areas should be planned so as to accommodate that housing needed to reach the housing targets?
Yeah. Great question. The majority. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, Baker again. I think the reason we did was recognizing that, and this is now we're getting more general here. There are some towns that are pretty large and where they're trying to direct growth in their village, maybe a small part of the town. They're just trying to recognize they may still have some percent of housing development still happening in the rural part of the town. It wouldn't be all happening in the village area.
Oh, I see.
So I thought the substantial majority is a good friendly amendment. Hopefully most of it's happening there.
Or how about the housing needed to reach the housing targets developed for each region, or somehow saying that won't be planned for development in other parts of the town or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. We were trying not to get to 100% because it didn't seem real, but I don't know what's less than that.
Either the majority or the substantial majority is fine. I mean, we want to remain flexible too.
Okay.
Yes, I mean,
I'll go with substantial.
substantial. All right. There's substantial for now.
Just looks like the word in on the next line.
Oh, yeah,
Shouldn't be there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Little editing housing.
Gene?
All right.
Page, line 17, targets in development. Okay. In this
So the next change is on page 69.
For that.
Representative Logan.
Just flagging something on page 64. Goes along with the PJ testimony that we received. That right now, in the purposes of the RPC, you might want to consider adding a goal that aligns future land use maps with Act 154.
I think we're at 64 with a proposed new language insertion.
Number 15, page 64. A reference you made in several other places was really simple, a reference to 3 BSA 6002.
Sure, but that's the definition section. So I think I need a few more words.
What did you just say? You suggested them.
That would align our, I would need time. I just wanted to flag it
The
for now.
future land use maps with the environmental justice.
Yeah, I've started,
Yeah.
we just had recommendations for where we might want to edit the bill, but no proposal of language. So
Yeah.
I've started drafting some proposed language for these sections, but it's not all ready, so I'll have it ready by the time we get back.
About to equitably distribute the environmental benefits and burdens.
In accordance with the VSA. Yeah,
Language at the top of page 65, it talks about the meaningful participation for that section, but
yeah. Yeah, so that's already in there. So then it seems like the goals should align with the duties, right? And it's also in E on page 65. So yeah, that's the.
Name change.
Yes. So you're changing to the board. This is just the first place it appears. Are you changing it to the community investment board or the community reinvestment board?
I think it was investment. That's for SIB.
Okay.
Two ums.
Sorry.
Cecilia and then Logan.
66, 17, 9, 9. I have a note here. On substantial deference.
Okay.
As a question for the RPCs, how is substantial deference, substantial regional impact? If there are limits. Oh, sorry.
like what, it's a higher legal bar, and that's the extent of my legal knowledge on that.
Yeah.
Representative Sabia, sorry if I can be a little bit more helpful. It really comes into play only in criterion 10 in regular Act 250 proceedings.
Which is?
Performance of the regional and town plan.
That's
Ish, something
Okay.
like that.
Part of its regional plan, and substantial regional impact. Okay, right, this is where the RPC has the flexibility to define, or the towns, what a substantial regional impact would be as part of their regional plan. And then that definition is given substantial deference in state regular substantial deference. Is there, I mean, so. Okay.
So I don't have the exact definition in front of me, but it is I'd say intermediate to high legal bar. It's not conclusive, but it is not due consideration. It's substantial.
Same standard we use for the town energy plans at the PUC. We changed the statute when we created that. Representative Stemmons.
Thanks, Madam Chair. So each RPC is going to develop their own definition of what substantial regional impact is. And then each one of those will have substantial difference. So what if you have heard language earlier where you two RPCs next to each other with different definitions? I mean, to me, substantial difference always makes me go, that's a big change from due consideration. So just asking, does that make sense to have each RPC? Am I understanding it correctly? That each RPC does that?
And can I ask a question also back, maybe a little bit, Charlie? I think this came with a recognition that in version 4.1, we struck review and participate as an interested party in the municipal development review process. Those, I think, were related. So in lieu of that language, I think, because they came together as changes, are they related?
I go home and think about that a little bit more, but this is just related to answer Representative Stebbins' question. Every RPC already is required to have an SRI, substantial regional impact definition, so that's been for 20 or 30 years in all of our plans, and it comes into play in criterion 10. Probably the NRB folks can give you more detail about that, but I think it has to do with the conflicting language between a town plan and regional plan.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. It comes in when there's a conflict between the local plan and the regional plan. And if the substantial regional impact is, if there's a conflict, then the regional plan will prevail if there is the substantial regional impact from that project.
Have you ever?
No, thinking about it, like if you have a regional impact, then makes sense that the regional plan would trump the local plan in the case of a conflict.
Have you ever seen a case where two regional planning commissions had different definitions of regional impact and then they were not lined up?
I'm intrigued by this discussion, but I do not.
I can tell you that every region's SRI definition is different. I don't
Makes sense.
I don't think we've had a case where there's been two RPCs because it's really where the project's located. So I don't think the adjacent RPC has, and they may have standing in a lawsuit, but they don't have standing in criterion 10.
We're calling this project into being, I'm certain of it.
The thing, at the end is important, it's the region that it's in. It's not the one next door that gets the substantial level.
Oh, okay.
That's an
Yeah.
important distinction.
Yeah, Representative Torrey.
Thank you. I just wanted to flag something, line 12 on page 69. I'm just remembering the Community Investment Board, didn't we say they weren't going to recommend, they were going to have comments?
Oh, yeah.
So maybe we
Yeah,
have to
comments.
change the sentence.
Or comments.
I mean, ACCD might still have formal review and recommendation, but not a board.
Neither of them have recommended.
Oh, neither of them.
It's all comment.
Okay,
You comment, but not recommend.
Oh, here.
get rid of formal review too.
Yeah.
Yeah, review.
And
and
I'm gonna
comment.
ask us to go
Yes.
back.
I'm trying to.
I think you can, I think this is a minor distinction. I mean, having them review, I think is what you want them to do. Recommendation, comment. And you can make it say comment if you want.
Sure. You don't need comments, so just do.
I don't understand what you guys are doing. Page 69, line 12.
Yeah. You're in 5
I'm in the wrong.
there are still remnants of old holdover language that gave a greater role in
Yeah.
what is now status to the to what is now the Community Investment Board, and they have no role in that, but would allow them to comment.
Senator Logan.
Page 67, underlined portion. Refers to equity and then refers to the Vermont Climate Action Plan as the standard, equity standard. Seems like we could make further additional reference to 3 PSA 6002. Similar to the language in a few other places.
67, yep.
Lines 15 through 17.
I have a question.
Okay, 66. Wait, let's finish this. Does anyone have an objection to Representative Logan's suggestion or concern?
But just to make sure I understand, you're suggesting that we simply continue the sentence, the sentence and for PSA section 6002.
Something like that. Whatever Ellen thinks makes sense.
Is that the environmental investment?
Yes.
So why would we put that on the end of, I mean, that's number 7 within that paragraph.
Yeah, purposes of a regional plan.
Correct.
We're on page 67, lines 5 to 15.
It seems like we've had recommendations to add that in.
It's in
Well, where
yes.
I think the overall consideration is that we consider that within the development of the plan.
Right.
So,
So it's in goals and then it's in,
so you agree with me, it should be in here once, maybe somewhere, as opposed to at the end of every.
Well, I think this was, I think Representative Logan was saying if we're referring to it, the equitably build resilience as called out in the Vermont Climate Action Plan and in additionally, and perhaps maybe more foundationally, it should be from the Environmental Justice Bill too. That's all. It's just an and.
Oh, I get that, but that's number 7 of a list.
yes.
When if we could put that in the beginning paragraph that we're considering that. As opposed to putting it in the
I see.
particular number within a list.
Let's say equitable, efficient equity.
You have equitable on page 66 on line 15.
Yeah. Equitable doesn't quite capture the purpose, which is to ensure that environmental benefits and burdens are distributed equitably. Just gives more specificity to what equitable means in this case.
So we're
And then-
discounting the first 6 within that list then on page 67?
What?
Then we're adding to it.
We're adding to it. So it's also creating conditions favorable to transportation and reducing waste of financial energy. And doing all those things and then making sure the benefits and disadvantages are distributed equitably.
All right, team, here's the thing. I think we're all agreeing. And if you want, when you read it over a break, you can decide and then come back and make your case for where it belongs appropriately. Representative Jennings.
Thanks, Madam Chair. We talked about this last Friday, I think, about the word insured, and maybe was that really doable?
Right.
That's what page we're on now.
Or, sorry,
67.
page 67, line 15. We can leave it for now and talk about it in the next draft.
Maybe I should change it.
I thought we had agreed we were gonna say promote equitable or something.
I think I had help communities equitably build.
Help.
Help. I think it was help is what we agreed to last Friday. So if you could make that change, I'll help for the next draft. Representative Steen.
Being that the state is so diverse in all different sections of it, I mean, thank you. Why couldn't regional planners do the environmental justice work for their particular area of the state?
That's the idea. Yep.
If you'd said that, I would have understood it, but.
Yes, it goes into the regional plan and it is responsive to what the communities there need.
Why don't we just leave that in the regional plans then and not have to include it in this?
This is the.
This is the regional
plan.
plan.
This is statute.
Maybe I'm missing something.
This
This is a regional plan, right?
This
there.
is talking about
Okay.
the purpose of the regional. plan.
Okay, I see. Now
Yeah,
we're getting.
We're adding the environmental justice into that part.
And okay, then, in that point, Representative Christie. Christie. I get the names confused. Has a good point where shouldn't it be at the beginning of the whole thing?
So,
Representatives.
Madam Chair, this sounds like something we should,
Take home.
Yeah.
And process, which I think I just proposed. Thank you for reiterating.
where it belongs in this
Yes.
section.
Yeah.
Madam Chair,
And I just want to say we did, I think, agreed, number 7 would say help. Does anyone object to changing that? Representative Sibilia, yeah.
I am liking, just a flag that I have, 6, line 18. That just is, welfare of current and future inhabitants and, just why was that important to, sorry, I'm basing really on this. Does it change anything, like, in terms of the plan?
Charlie Baker.
Yeah, sorry, this came from the RPC, it's Charlie Baker. I think we were just really trying to make clear that we're doing it not just for the current residents, but also for future residents, and we're trying to promote housing in these places. It's just some clarity, because, yeah, if it wasn't there, there's an argument that it was just protect.
We have it.
Right.
Okay, and is there any kind of like enforcement or anything like that change, Alan, do you think? Does it mean anything like legally?
Well, yes. I mean, and coming up, we've added it to the list of criteria against which the plan needs to be reviewed.
I really hope that you and I have not already had this conversation on the table, or I apologize.
Moving on to the
Page
next.
71,
Whoa, whoa.
but
We're halfway there.
We're moving right along. More too. More than.
so on page 71,
Moving on there.
you part of the end of that sentence has been cut off, which is why there's a yellow highlight on line 6, which was a reference to the Community Revitalization Board. So that has been struck. And then in the middle of that next paragraph, the environmental review board shall hold a public hearing and provide notice of it at least 15 days in advance. And so this is on the regional plan, so that was just clarifying that sentence. In subsection 3,
Back on 71. Back on 70. Recommendation from the state. Recommendation, we struck that, right? Recommendation from the state.
Is there a line number?
Each one, 71.
yes, it was struck.
Thank you. Okay, great.
It's indicated on line 6.
Can't find it because it's struck.
In subsection 3, which is line 15, the 3 is highlighted because a sentence has been struck there as well. Same topic.
Yep. That gives us 4-1.
Got it.
On page 72, the bottom of the page, following has been added to clarify that the objection to the plan may be made within 15 days following the plan adoption. And then written or oral comments are what are required for that objection to be made.
And again. On this is objections of interested parties.
That's just editors or versus verbal.
So. Did recognize, but, if I might, line 19, page 72. I think I had hoped to see more days there. I don't know if we got that 2 days or.
So we talked about the timeline after. So I believe.
I have a note, Laura wants to go longer, and then I have a note, as is consistent with, was consistent with another something going on.
Okay, so this sounds like something that I'm gonna try and educate myself on.
But I think
over-
there's,
The rationale, kind of,
yeah,
the rationale for leaving it at 15 days, if I recall, was that the person who's appealing would have been at the hearing and would know.
That's right.
Thought about going longer at one point was to make sure there was time to get a proper notice in, but then there was, then you.
Right.
reminded
they've
us
already
that
participated.
people had participated, and therefore.
That's right. Okay. Cross that.
So on page 73. On page 72. I forgot to highlight subsection B on line 8, which is consistency with purposes of the regional plan established in 4347 as one of the elements we were just discussing that needs to be reviewed. On page 73, the definition of interested persons. In the last draft, you struck a single person owning or occupying property. That's why A is highlighted. And then the reference previously was appeal, and that word has been changed to objection.
And in 4. Sorry, trying to shift between 4, 1, and 5. So just flagging, I think I was here. So if there's disagreement with the region, RPC disagrees. Is there any relief past the ERB with objections? Yes. Sir?
No.
Remembering there's no appeal now.
Okay.
So next. On page 74, title of the community reinvestment board has been updated. And again, minor amendments to future land use areas as opposed to something else. And then there's.
I think it's the same.
I think we got rid of designated. Maybe we deleted some words. Is that right?
Change the word with district to areas. District to area. Also, in the prior version, you had added the sentence, the board may adopt rules to implement this section, and then I think you also were discussing whether or not you wanted to do rules, that's why it's bolded.
Say that over and over throughout, or, I guess,
I mean, you don't say it over and over throughout. The rule authority of the board is changing somewhat in addition to their general authority changing. So if you want them to adopt something specific, it is a good idea to mention it.
but they have rulemaking authority.
They have broad rulemaking authority to adopt rules related to Act 250. I can look back at their rulemaking authority for regional plans, but it's more specific. So
Future, it would be just helpful to understand where we are giving more rulemaking authority and where we are calling for rules. Is that in our process map already? Yes, this. Of the bill.
I don't know what a process.
Timeline. The
Do
time,
this.
that we mean by process.
Yeah, well, just, I'm thinking about a process map, that each, you give us three. One was just kind of the,
Right, on your timeline are things that you have directly associated dates with, not vague things. Your outline includes many of the provisions of this bill, so no, I haven't specifically called out every time you mention rules.
It would probably be helpful as we get closer and closer, to have like some, like, these are the rulemaking steps, you know, as we get closer to whatever that final product looks like. So we can really be clear as to when there will be substantial opportunities for public outreach and process and involvement compared to guidance or whatnot.
Yep. You ready? Yeah, okay. What? Right?
yeah.
So,
Great.
okay, keep going.
So the next change is not until page 82, but I do want to flag that you were discussing renaming some of the categories under the future land use map. Downtown or village centers, villages, village areas. Sporadically through 80 to 82 to 84. So the names have not been changed here.
Innocent.
I'm sorry. 76. Just want to come back to line 4 and 5, not in this moment. But just keep my flag there. I did ask to get testimony specifically from NVDA about this. And I've been assured by that NVDA can do this, but I really would like to hear from NVDA about their 55 town region and doing, you know, how they would do this.
Where are you?
So I'm sorry, page 76, lines 4 and 5
NBD
for
next week. Or following week.
Dave Snedeker.
Northwest.
Eastern Vermont. development information.
On page 82, we change and to or, that it's municipal water or soup or wastewater. As I mentioned previously, this is not a defined term, so I should probably strike the reference to 4303. Which then does raise the question of what you mean by municipal water or wastewater.
Not defined when you change it from an and to an or. Like, the definition only goes if they're together.
Yes, a definition is an exact phrase that's defined.
Water and wastewater are not defined anywhere separately.
Not where we are in statute.
Should we insert definitions? I mean, I guess I think we know what we mean by this. So I'm wondering if it's unclear. If you strike the reference, are we confusing people out there in the world what water and wastewater service means?
Is there a requirement that there be capacity? What if the municipality refuses to issue authorization for connections?
Yeah, so then maybe we need definitions. Is that what you're saying? It's,
I mean, yeah, I mean,
so the and definition, the difference is and capacity. I mean, it implies capacity because it's defined as capacity. Is it anything else in there that we should know about existing this reference definition?
yes, that definition is an entire page long. It is a thing that the towns have the ability to define for themselves in their bylaws, and so I don't
It's
actually.
last year's changes.
Yes.
You reminded us of that.
So I don't actually know if that is the definition you want to be
Yeah.
using here, either way. Perhaps.
The time to review. that
Yeah,
definition.
we should all take the time to read
And keep that full.
one more. Or, yeah. Charlie could review it for us.
Great.
Yeah, can somebody just?
Thank you. Thank you.
So again, you discussed different names for village areas. Additionally, on page 84, subsection D is currently called transition/infill area. We don't use slash in statute generally. So I'm flagging that as another area. I don't know if you want to rename.
Could say transition for infill. You already addressed the slashes.
You did not address this one.
Charlie, do you have a preferred term?
The or works.
Position or infill area?
Thank you.
In resource on page 82.
So we do want to adopt these categories of land use.
Yeah, Charlie Baker for the RPCs. Yeah, these are what came out of our study. For the
Right.
RPC land.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay,
Then do we need to say infill? I mean, I don't know if yours line up with this still. This doesn't say infill, it just says transition.
It says transition, yeah. So transition rainfill is fine, right? I don't know.
Are you using both? In your future land use
I
map?
think the or would provide some flexibility for whatever the RPC wants to do. Use either label at that point, right?
It's do or infill.
On page 84 in resource-based recreation area, it now reads that may provide infrastructure jobs or housing.
Yep, that was just because it had an and that sounded exclusive before.
The bottom of page 85, the definition of rural conservation area has been stored that has been changed to match the earlier section on resources. And so rural conservation area, these areas are areas of significant natural resources, including proposed for forests, wetlands, vernal pools, rare and irreplaceable natural areas, floodplains, river corridors, recreation, agriculture, using the definition or identification process in 6 ESA section 8 onto page 86. Residence, commerce, industry, public and semi-public uses, open spaces reserved for floodplain, forest blocks, habitat connectors, recreation areas, recreational trails, and areas identified by the state, regional planning commissions, and municipality that require special consideration for aquifer protection, for wetland protection, for maintenance of forest blocks, wildlife habitat and habitat connectors, and for other conservation purposes.
Go ahead first.
I was just going to let the committee know that well, Baker on behalf of the RBCs, that will probably be some provide you some comments to try to separate out some of the ag forestry.
Yeah, thank you.
You have the previous section that talks about ag forestry. So that was just some minor thing, but we'll.
I think it's important because that was a lot. So thank you. Representative Logan.
And just for the record, rural conservation does not necessarily map onto critical resource areas.
Correct.
I just wanted, I knew it was going to be causing you some anxiety.
Well, I'm just trying to make sure I have them in the right columns.
Right.
But also it's going to cause other people. So just when I think about education.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Engagement, these are.
I mean, is there a need to state something about, because we're talking about the land use mapping process, identifying the tiers. But then there isn't a specific category here that would like map onto the critical resource areas. It's just all lumped under rural conservation, which is a larger category that includes critical resource areas. Maybe we just include the term critical resource areas in this definition of rural conservation.
You just crossed me up
Like,
saying that.
and-
No, I want to hear.
It's
Representative Sibilia has a thought.
Yeah, and not for now, but perhaps in an upcoming draft, some sort of reader assistance at the beginning. A little bit more about what the bill is doing, you know, and it just
Section by section.
No, yeah.
well, like in the
In
law,
statute.
like you're starting with that, like, you know, the first sections are dealing with, well, so that's the face that I'm making as we're going through a lot of this, because I don't have experience with a lot of this, and a lot of other people who read the bill may find that as well. So just kind of talking about this first section is around, please let me get this right. How moving to location-based jurisdiction, which means blah, blah. This section, second section, I mean, just a little bit
So-
more in simpler language for
Yeah,
reader
I-
assistance.
When we got into the purpose yesterday, I was like, we're gonna rewrite the purpose because now the bill has broadened it.
Okay.
The original purpose started with a bill that was focused mostly on governance. So now, anyway, I think we could do that in the purpose, and then I think,
Okay.
would you, I mean, a sentence for each section, major block, at least
Yeah.
a sentence, what we're doing.
Yeah.
Even if it's purpose section that I know Ledge Council doesn't love already, but anyway. I think we could do that.
Well, that's not really the proper reason to have a purpose section.
Representative Seven.
Maybe it's understanding that everything keeps shifting and therefore it's challenging. But maybe it's the updating of the timeline and having, I mean, I don't think the purpose has to go into every section because that would be a lot, but we could say
No, I'm thinking the four
Three.
buckets.
broad,
It's
Yeah,
two, four, it's governance, jurisdiction.
Yeah.
Future land use mapping
Yes.
and economic
Incentives.
investment. economic investment program,
Yes.
or big buckets. You don't have to do.
Yeah.
Roads. We were talking about something else, Representative Unger.
85, line 19. Don't propose, don't propose wetlands. Or. So
Right,
it's
I
that,
think Charlie said he will help us
Okay.
clean this up.
all right,
I mean, follow up on this issue about how it relates to tier 3. I think we probably will also propose some language to like have some supplemental, like after the ERB does their rulemaking, there may be, I don't know, if it's an additional land use layer or a component or part of this layer, but just so that the RPCs can map those tier 3 layers after they're done. So we'll come back with some language on that.
Yeah, I mean, I expect they will be drawn from this.
Yeah, I think we have an iterative process, right? We may be helping to inform that rulemaking, then the rulemaking happens, and then we'll want to map what came out of that rulemaking in our next iteration of doing the plan.
Yeah. I guess what I'm saying is I'd be surprised if I think river corridors are on here. And the mapping is probably already going to be done. It's just which resources. Yeah. Representative Logan.
And then question about, just going back to the environmental justice piece, when the environmental justice, area maps are ready. Would that be an area that RPCs would want to include in their regional plans?
It probably won't be on a future land use map, but it might be like informing our public engagement efforts, right? That's the reason we do those EJ maps. Yeah.
Alrighty.
Page 86 and 87 moves the language from Bill's later section up into the section about the regional plans.
Right, I'll just align. That'll help.
There are any changes in the section on municipal and regional planning fund? The next change is on page 92. Well, so on 92, there's a question. You have changed in this draft the name of the board to the State Community Investment Board. Do you want to name the overall program the State Community Investment Program?
We need to get feedback from the department.
To the extent that they're able to provide it. Yes, but for next iteration, yes. Representative Smith.
Where, they said State Community Revitalization Program, that's going to change, that name is going to change to what?
Community Investment Program.
Sounds better than revitalization.
We think so. I mean, I think we talked about it the other day for the board, so. Following it through.
93, a reference to the ERB has been added to the definition section. On line 19, the words required under 4348 have been added because I think it said per previously. That's more for grammar. On page 95, State Board has been changed to the Community Investment Board. At the bottom of page 95, a downtown or village center means a contiguous downtown or village area approved as part of the Environmental Review Board review of regional plan future land use maps. It's a clarification from the prior language. And the same language has been added on page 96 for state designated neighborhoods. Vermont Downtown Program means a program within the department that coordinates with Main Street America. On page 97, the name of the board has been changed again to the Investment Board. On page 98, the chair of the Natural Resources Board has been swapped out for a representative of a regional development corporation designated by the Regional Development Corporation. On page 99, under the duties of the state board, it's been changed to review and comment on proposed regional plan maps. And then review and comment on the ERB's guidelines and rules or procedures for the status, process, and regional plan future land use maps as they relate to designations under this chapter.
And up above, you highlighted revitalization for us, so I think it needs to get changed to investment on line 9.
On page 100, the paragraph has been updated to include the phrase, the regional plan future land use map shall identify downtown centers and village centers as the downtown and village areas eligible for designation as centers. The department and state board shall provide comments to the ERB on areas eligible for state designation. On line 11 into 12, December 25th has been changed to December 31st to match the others. On line 14, the cross-reference has been updated to match the section 6033. On page 101, a center may receive benefits associated with the steps in this section. The department shall issue a written determination within 30 days of a regional for land use map approval.
Land use map gets approved and the land use map process determines what the designations are. And so then the department,
During that period.
no, they issue a written administrative decision, I guess, to the
What
center
step they,
neighborhood.
what step they fall into under center? On page 102, the department may issue guidelines to administer these steps. On page 103, center reaches center if it meets the requirements of step 1 or it has a designated village center.
6A is still referenced there.
Yes.
Oh, because it's supposed to, never mind. Previous.
On page 104, a center reaches step 3 and maintains step 3. There was a slightly different phrase there before. On page 108, the reference to the regional plan future land use map. I think just for consistency of terms. The top of page 109, new NDA designation may be approved by the board. So you added the word new there versus only. And then certain housing appeal limitations under chapter 117. to match the language in the prior section.
Just seeing some bolded sections here, which I recall Ellen saying are places where we haven't made decisions yet, and I'm definitely not asking to talk about those things in this moment, just that bolding carry into the next draft.
Yep.
So one thing to flag on both of these, where if you move forward with the updating to the designated areas to have these new titles, I'm gonna have to correct like a lot of cross references in statute, including currently the authority to lower speed limits is only extended to downtowns, not neighborhood development areas. So first of all, that's a new incentive, I gather. But also that statute will conflict with this unless it's specifically updated. And actually same for line 18 as well. The certain housing limitation a limitation on housing appeals is currently by designated area, I believe. So that is gonna have to be updated.
Presumably.
So was this a recommendation that the department made to include the like additional incentive? Okay. Yes, but that is strange. It's like little change in the program, right?
I think that the goal of the updates is to provide more incentives for less work. So this would be a more incentive for something. On page 110, line 5, the transition paragraph has been cut down significantly because things have been rearranged. So that's why there's just one piece of highlighting there.
Um, 5809,
Page
113. Existing law, that's why it's underlined. It's not new, right?
yes.
Is there just a way, I know this whole section is moved around like existing language, is there a way to differentiate between moved around and new? Compared to the law, I guess you just have to go.
In the bill? No. And I did indicate them when I did the initial walkthrough, what was new and what was existing.
What version?
3.
was that? Of what, the, where you highlighted what was new and,
Every time we've walked through it.
I think it was 3.1.
no, I mean the original
No, I think,
difference.
no, she didn't do it. It was, we did it as we were walking through. In the first 2 walkthroughs, we did note them. So mine says like new, I would write it down.
Oh, okay,
So we had to track it.
gotcha.
There's no way to indicate in the bill.
Right,
Section by section. we
it's a new section, right? Yeah, it feels, yeah.
On page 119, there's an update to the qualified flood mitigation project language. The language that had been proposed by the department referenced downtown village center neighborhood development area. Now it just references qualified buildings, which includes reference to the designated areas. And also on this page, there's update to the community investment board from revitalization board. And then related to this, go ahead.
You're on this related on 119?
No, I'm going to talk broadly about it.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
this draft?
No, about this chapter, but go ahead.
Oh, okay. No, mine's something else.
So on the last page, I have updated there to be an effective date for the repeal, and I think that you need to think about this because and it will relate to the effective date of the tax credit language as well. So because you're doing multiple things in this, I'm going to need direction on the effective dates of how this plays out in the big transition.
Yeah.
So on one hand, you may want to separate what I was just talking about. So you're doing two things in the tax credit section. You're updating all the references to the locations for the tax credits. You're also making changes to the qualified flood mitigation tax credit, which you may want to do sooner rather than later. So you may actually want you may want that to take effect immediately. And so you probably want them to be in separate sections. Although I still hadn't heard testimony from the department if that was their intent or not. So I suspect it is, but
So on page 122, the flood mitigation tax credit.
yeah, it might need to have its own section.
Yeah, can we do that for the next draft?
Well,
Yeah, it's a lot.
well, I guess we're gonna talk about it in a minute because
If the
We're talking
department
about-
doesn't want it, then you'll out of your time instead, right? That wasn't there.
that's not what I was implying, but we can talk about that in a minute. Go ahead. Do you have something on this section?
No, something in between. So after the Regional Planning Commission study, there was that language about the affordable housing study, affordable housing policy study. It doesn't really fit into any other section of this bill very well because it covers tier 1A and tier 1B. So there's just no really, unless we want duplicative language, I don't know. Anyway, so I talked with the folks who drafted the language and they suggested that it just go into the bill after the Regional Planning Commission study. Inclusionary housing policy study. It's the language that I forwarded by email. Committee. Yeah.
Or it could also just go at the end of the bill.
Yeah.
Yeah, in it,
Yep.
But
I just
it
thought
could go-
for the effective dates,
put it in where you,
if you want it.
wherever Ellen thinks is appropriate. Let's try it on. All right, thank you, Ellen. For that work. And so I know, so I did take the liberty of asking Ellen to begin another draft after yesterday's discussions. At least some of what we're asking you to do is in that, and that'll be not so much. And I guess what I would say is, you know, what's your ability to make any of the changes that we just said? We didn't make a lot of changes in this, but it's up to you. I do want to post 6-1 by when you're finished today. And if that means it's the one you've already started and that's all, that's fine. If you can make some of these changes, that would be great. I don't think we'll be able to, I mean, we'll ask, could we print some now? I don't think there's a chance that it could be further updated. I held off on that. So folks may just need to look at it online at home, and I recommend it. Further thoughts? Send us some.
When will we have a new draft?
That's what we're talking about right now.
'Cause, what I
Trying to
wanna
figure it out,
do,
right?
I
Yeah,
won't be back next week. I'd like to have Will just email a new draft out when you do get one.
right. We're just figuring out when we'll get it and what's
Great.
possible in
Okay.
it. That's what we're figuring out right now. So, the sooner we adjourn, the more likely it is to have more in it, but for witness discussion.
Well, I was leaving at work at 4 today, so that's not happening. So I guess I should just stay and do this draft whenever and stay until it's done. Because I'm leaving for Florida very soon.
I'm leaving for Derby very soon.
So I'm not going to do it tomorrow. So I guess I am working until this updated draft is done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Sevilla.
My question is on, or around witnesses.
Okay, so Ellen, I think, thank you, and feel free to go. And
I have a few questions though.
Oh, no.
Have fun about it.
Representative Sevilla.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make sure that we get one last from the LCT, and I would like us to hear from a developer or development, and my suggestion would be to reach out to. We could, it's just not a suggestion, I'm happy to send some names, but we could reach out to the RDCs to see if they have a developer that would be prepared to offer us some kind of helpful feedback early next week.
Okay. Dennis.
Everyone wants to go home, but developer is a really broad category.
Yeah.
So,
What kind of
I
developer?
understand what you're asking, and I don't disagree, but I'm just like, wow, that's what type of developer?
So so we've heard from VHCP, which is a developer. And, I'm thinking of private developers that do housing development.
But we reached out to the engineers who are on the NRB study. Others,
They're coming.
they've come.
No, they
We
keep
reached out. I mean, looking at the list
Yes,
of who
yes, yes.
from. How about this? You can send me suggestions.
I'm specifically thinking in Southern Vermont of like developers that have looked in there, like major projects in Brattleboro or Bennington.
Hill construction. Who we heard from last year.
The Hale would be great. I'm sure he would, sure he's following the bill. Sure, he'd be really succinct and helpful in terms of any suggestions.
Okay. How about,
They agree with Hale.
Who's that is?
we will, feel free to email me suggestions for witnesses and, have a restful break and a edifying break around 6:87.